Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Right now we are in a very energetically chaotic period of time here on Earth. We've had some critical planetary geometry unfold around May 29th to the 30th because of a Mercury cazimi. All the planets were in a geometric relationship to one another. I forecasted out about a week prior to that we were going to have some significant solar activity and or geomagnetic disturbances. And well, that's exactly what we've had. We had a G3 minus geomagnetic storm. So that's a strong geomagnetic storm. Scale rating goes from 1 to 5. At the very early hours of May 29th, universal time, that has now just tapered off. But we've had two big solar storms launch our way. The first one, not as big as the second one. That was the first one. Watch the second one. Super long duration solar flare. Check that out. And now it looks like there's a third that has just launched our way. So it looks like there's 3 solar storms racing to Earth at this moment in time. The second solar storm being the fastest by far is going to catch up to that first one, pancake them together, and that's expected to be a very strong impact. I'm forecasting that's going to be a G4 to G5 geomagnetic storm. We are right now in a radiation storm triggered by that explosion on the sun, and that's also a different type of energetic influence. So we just got out of a strong geomagnetic storm. Those energy perturbations are still affecting our planet. We have 3 solar storms inbound. We're in a radiation storm, and there's also been a flurry of magnitude 6+ earthquakes. So there's a lot happening right now. Things are pretty wild, but I do want to state right from the beginning that's not like this has never happened before. The Earth, we think, has been around for about 4.5 billion years, a very long time. And in general, the sun's been around longer than that, and it has all these rhythms of activity. And so this isn't anything that's never happened before, but it certainly is a big push of energy from the sun. The Earth is responding in kind with its own energetic changes, and that's happening on top of everything that we as humans have done to Earth over the past 150, 200 years. Not only through our technology and industry, but also through our mind and our consciousness. So there is a lot that's happening right now. We have some historic planetary resonances that are unfolding from 2025 to 2026. This is the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. They go nearly conjunct in July, and then they have their final conjunction in February of 2026. And in fact, on January 6th to the 10th or so of 2026, we have some ultra critical planetary geometry, a perfect line between all the inner planets and Jupiter. So that's looking really significant. So I say all this just to inform you as to what is happening, and I state the fact that this has all happened before in a variety of ways and permutations and such, so you're not necessarily freaked out by this. This isn't anything that's never happened before. Doesn't mean it's not significant though. I think there's a little bit of an issue nowadays with mindset that's like everything has to be the biggest ever for it to be significant. Whereas if you look at things like the Schumann resonances, Earth's naturally resonant energy fields, they have extremely, extremely, extremely low field strengths in the picotesla range for the magnetic field, yet they are incredibly significant. They have guided and shaped our evolution for millions and even billions of years from unicellular life. So just because something is small doesn't mean it's insignificant. In fact, if you look at quantum physics, some of the ideas posited, especially by like David Bohm, is that the amplitude of a fluctuation in a quantum field doesn't matter. It's just the fact of, is there a signal there? Is there not a signal there? So again, we've seen Carrington impacts in the past. 1859, that was a really big solar storm impact. Telephone wires were sparking. They were able to unplug their telegraph stations and actually run on the natural geoelectric currents. 1921 was another really big solar storm impact. We've had some misses as well. If we go back to 774, 775 AD, that was a Miyake event, about 10 times bigger than a Carrington event. And there's a record of Miyake events going back thousands and thousands of years. So again, everything in context. But this is a big solar storm, and it's going to be the biggest solar storm yet in 2025. Almost certainly, the only possibility of that not being the case is that the magnetic field characteristics of that plasma blob happen to be very anti-conducive to connecting to Earth's magnetic field. So that'd be a very strong northward component for all of you that know that. And so what are some of the ramifications of that? Before we get into our solar activity and geophysical report, dive into all the details, some of the ramifications, like real world ramifications of these solar storm impacts, is the fact that we will have disruptions to satellite technology and GPS. So during May 2024, with the G5 storm that we had then, there was a lot of precision agriculture that was being done. You know, early May is when you're starting to plant your seeds and crops and everything. And a lot of these big combines or whatever, planting the seeds, right, just agricultural equipment is all run with GPS now. There's not someone actually steering it. They may be there monitoring the equipment. Anyways, the tracks went crazy on all those during that G5 storm because the GPS signals went totally wonky as a result of the solar storms that came in. Also, during geomagnetic storms, especially powerful geomagnetic storms, you create more drag in the uppermost part of the atmosphere where all these low Earth satellites are. You're also creating deep dielectric charging within these satellites so they can potentially short circuit, have problems. But the increased atmospheric drag as a result of all this energy fluctuations can cause satellites to deorbit early and then burn up. So you have satellite failures. That's common. You can have radio blackouts. We've been having radio blackouts because of these solar flares. So radio communications like ham radio, but also other critical radio communications can go down as a result of that. This is all on the technological side. You can also have geomagnetically induced currents that become very powerful, and when those are induced into very long transmission lines, that can cause power grid failures, whether small or large. We haven't seen a large one since really 1989 with the Quebec storm. A G5 impact triggered the power to go out in Quebec. What we had last year in May and also in October didn't trigger any significant power outages, so we got lucky that time. But that is always a possibility. We have seen power outages as a result of solar activity, though more localized. And in general, as we just saw with Spain and Portugal, which was a power grid due to green energy production, that's what it seems, you know, things can grind to a halt very quickly when the power goes out, especially over a large area. So that is also a very real risk of significant solar activity. We are in solar cycle 25, a very strong solar cycle compared to the last one, solar cycle 24. In general, this has been a much more active one, and we have quite a few years left of potential significant solar activity. We have the rest of 2025, we have 2026 for solar maximum, then we'll be into the descending phase, probably mid-2026, into 2027, 2028, you can have really big solar storm impacts during the descending phase and more. So those are some of the technological effects, not all of them, but some of them. There's also a lot of biophysical and health and wellness effects. For example, changes to blood viscosity and overall blood clotting has been linked to solar activity. We know that the autonomic nervous system changes in response to solar activity, and also geophysical events like earthquakes. Circadian rhythm gets altered, cortisol production goes up, your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest nervous system helps you relax and sleep, that gets blunted. You have this stress response that activates the HPA axis, and this can trigger things like pain and inflammation and chronic fatigue and headaches and more. You could also feel more wired, really jazzed up as a result of this activity. There's a whole range of expression. Some of the best evidence is actually for some of the most significant health effects, which would be cardiac infarctions, which is a heart attack, especially in older people and in sensitive individuals that have already pre-existing cardiovascular problems. So that's something to be mindful of. One of the best things you can do to remedy all that is to practice grounding. So you go outside, put your feet on the grass, you connect to the earth. That is one of the best things you can do. In fact, I do have earthing shoes available on the website wildfreeorganic.com/store. If you don't have them already, it's too late to get them in time for this impact because this could be coming in less than 24 hours. It's a very high velocity launch, but in general, it's good to be prepared and anyone can go outside and do grounding barefoot. Now, Northern Hemisphere, nearly summertime, great time to do that and make sure you do that. Some of the other implications of this really strong solar storm sequence is that we are going to have a lot of aurora. Now, we're getting close to solstice in the, just in general, but in this northern hemisphere, summer solstice. So depending on how high up you are, you're going to have less and less night. But I would expect aurora to go down to mid-latitudes at least with this solar storm impact. So if you were in the upper part of the United States, even down to perhaps like Colorado, maybe even like if you're really dark skies like New Mexico, places like that, all those I think are on the table for aurora. So if you want to see the northern lights perhaps for the first time or again, you know, you can start making plans for that now. And you can actually see this solar plasma come in and start to dance in the night sky. So really incredible stuff about to head our way. But this is what's been happening. This sunspot group 4100, as you can see, is still very active. I put out an alert on Twitter X at Stefan Burns Geo about 24 hours before this big solar storm saying, look at that activity. I bet we have something coming. I wouldn't be surprised. And while we had this long duration 8.2 M-class flare, something to note, that's not an X-class flare, which is the highest category, but the long duration of it means it was actually a very powerful flare. You see how long it was flaring for, and it had multiple solar flares stacked on top of that decline in flux. So watch how there's multiple flashes of light after the big push right there. You'll see quite a few. See all that right there? Those are all extra solar flares, and now we have this new one right there. That's that third solar storm. But before we go super in depth into the rest of this, let's look at our earthquakes, because that is a really significant change over the past 36 hours or so. We've had 3 magnitude 6 plus earthquakes, whereas before we were kind of like wondering where they were. So here we have our USGS latest earthquakes map, and we can see stacked by largest magnitude for the past 7 days. And so we see southwest of Africa right here. This was just about 24 plus hours ago. So in between Antarctica and Africa. Then if we zoom over, we get our next one that occurred recently, which was Japan. Magnitude 6 in Japan, their northern island just off the coast. And also now just recently, within about maybe 3 hours maximum, is this magnitude 6.1 north of New Zealand near Tonga. So in the Kermadec Trench. You also see here a magnitude 6 earthquake, though that was on the 25th of May. So that's about a week ago now. But in general, 3 magnitude 6 plus earthquakes in less than 36 hours. We could get more of those. This is the sort of activity that you can expect when you have these really big fluctuations in energy, which in our solar system is driven primarily by the sun. Of course, you can have galactic influences as well, like a huge cosmic ray burst, things of that nature. Quite rare. It's possible though. But the solar activity is the big driver of a lot of these energetic changes. And one of those changes that's occurring right now is the fact that we are in a proton storm. So let me pull up our proton flux. We just hit the S1 threshold. So this is another modifying factor on this solar storm. Why I think it's very likely to be a G5 storm. Let me step over. There you see it. There's some initial forecasts are coming out. I think people are hesitant to say that we have a G5 storm. It may not be a G5 storm. Again, it depends on the magnetic field characteristics, but we have a lot of +1 modifying factors on this. One of these being this radiation storm. So we have relativistic particles streaming in from outer space, interacting with the planet and charging it up to an extra degree. And when you have just general more charge, more electric currents, things of this nature, stronger electric potentials, and then you get that solar storm impact to come in, well, boom shakalaka. You have you're cooking with fire now. So all this energy also interacts with us consciously and even spiritually. So we've been seeing, increased polarization and volatility across our societies and governments and even people, right? Like we see the effects of people with a full moon, right? That's why you have the term lunatic, Luna being the moon. You have this longer rhythm of changes in people's activity and consciousness with solar activity. We see that most revolutions occur during solar maximum periods. You can chart that back going like 300 years. It's pretty crazy, going all the way back to the American Revolution. So this sort of solar activity can also precipitate really powerful, spontaneous social processes to occur. Keep that in mind. So it's hard to make an exact prediction as to how that's going to manifest, if that's going to manifest, but it's much more likely to under these sort of conditions, and that could happen really anywhere. Anywhere that's at that tipping point could get tipped over, and then that gets triggered. So that's also just important to note. But we have this proton radiation storm right now in S1. That was a result of that explosion, accelerating some of these extremely high energy protons at the advance of that impact. And we see that that impact is coming in quickly. If we go to our ACE real-time flux here, we see for the past day, all these low energy protons and electrons have gone up dramatically. And so we see them all there flat, and then boom, look at that. The white line, for example, this is an order of magnitude jump. Each of these dashed lines, order of magnitude, so a 10x. This white line went up 1 order of magnitude, 2 orders of magnitude, 3+ orders of magnitude. That's a 1,000 times increase in the flux of the 795 to 1,195 kiloelectron volt protons. We see similar rises for low energy electrons, some of these other bands of protons there. That is showing that this coronal mass ejection is not going to miss us. It's definitely not going to miss us. We can look at our space weather model from the UK Met Office, and we see that we have the first solar storm there. Look at the second one though, much bigger, sweeping by the Earth. And so that is coming in. Let me pause exactly with their estimated time. We have this coming in. There's the first one again. There's the second one. And pause. They're showing that coming in at 8 a.m. UTC, so Universal Time, on June 1st. June 1st. So if you are on the East Coast of the United States, you go back 4 hours. That would be your 4 a.m. If you're on the West Coast, you go back 7 hours. That's your 1 a.m. So if you're in Alaska, you potentially have some good aurora viewing coming up tonight. Same for northern Washington, Canada, even if you're willing to stay up late, eastern United States. Europe may, it depends on when it hits. If you're an aurora chaser, you definitely want to try to get this one, because this is going to be the best solar storm impact yet in 2025. We just got to have a G3 minus storm, which again is another one of these +1 modifiers making this bigger. That's why I think we have a G5 coming in. This does not have that third solar storm though on the model, because that's just happening right now. Let's actually look at our most up-to-date data on that. We have our SUVI imagery, and we can pull that up right here, and we can check out what's happening with the sun in terms of our 131 angstrom view. Let me get it up for you guys. Here we have our most recent 3 hours of imagery of the sun, and we're just looking at this most recent flare. That looks like we got a push there, right from Earth center direct to. Does look like some of that plasma goes back in. This is not as significant as the first, that second big solar storm, but the first really big one. This would be the third storm right there. Doesn't look as significant as the last one, but certainly now another one following up behind us. I'm not sure if this shows up on the chronograph view, but let's go to our chronograph view so you can see what I'm talking about as it relates to some of the solar activity, because we can see how it's headed towards us by looking at our chronograph. And I just have to find it for you. There's so many tabs open. There's so many tabs open. I'll just use this one right here. So we'll go to our chronograph. If you're new to the Space Weather Portal on NOAA, it says swpc.noaa.gov, and then they have this whole thing here you can check out. Here we can look at our CCOR chronograph view, the most up to date, and we'll put this on full screen so we can check this out. Also, for everyone that's been part of the channel for a while, hello and welcome. And everyone that's new, hello and welcome again. I'm your host, Stefan Burns. We're talking about what's happening, this new era that we're entering into. I think all this energy is going to precipitate some really significant changes across our planet. Nothing that we haven't seen before, but this is, every moment in time is unique in and of itself. And we just hit 300,000 subscribers on the channel, so that is awesome. Thank you everyone for who's joined to make that possible. Really incredible. We can even see some of this planetary geometry that I mentioned at the outset of this video with Mercury right there. Mercury's on the other side of the sun, just having finished performing a superior conjunction. That's where it's on the outside. When it's inside the orbit of the sun and the Earth, that's an inferior conjunction. And this was the main agent of that planetary geometry that I had identified a week prior. The next big planetary geometry that I have identified is June 21st. So I've said that a few times now, but I'm putting that out there well in advance because this forecast for June 29th to 30th has proven really, really exceptionally accurate. No one else is using this method as far as I know. And so June 21st is the next one. So far, we're 4 for 4 on forecasting using planetary geometry. This is a new method for me, though I had the requisite knowledge to implement it quickly on the channel and for all of you guys. But we'll see the first solar storm right there. See that coronal mass ejection? So just an indirect hit to Earth. There's the second one, just like this. Really crazy. I mean, that is a big high velocity solar storm coming in quick, probably less than 24 hours now. The estimated velocity on that is really high. It's like 1,500 kilometers per second or greater. So very, very high velocity coronal mass ejection. And we're not seeing anything yet from this third one. So if you scroll all the way to the end there, nothing yet on this chronograph view. So maybe it's on the C2 chronograph. We'll give it a look, but I'm not super confident that we have it on here yet either. It may not have launched a coronal mass ejection. That third one may not have launched one, though it looks like it did looking at the 170 or the 131 angstrom view. Let us go and look at some of our other views of the sun while we're here. So specifically our 171 is a nice one to check out. So let's get this going and we can see just some really incredible activity. And we have a super thanks in from Curtis. I don't think I can show it easily anymore, but thank you, Curtis, for the very generous super thanks. Really incredible. He is running servers looking at the sun in H alpha and measuring those flux values as well. So if you saw that super thanks come in, jump over his channel if you want to see some of this hard data on the sun. So yeah, thank you for that, Curtis. And so there's that long duration explosion. We have a variety of names for these things. Just to put it really simple though, it's a massive explosion on the sun. And so we call it a solar flare because of the light that it flares at. It's a big bright flash of light across a whole range of the light spectrum. But we measure the intensity of that flare using X-ray light. So that very specific part of the light spectrum, that's X-ray frequency. We measure that, gives it that classification. And then if it launches plasma our way, from the corona and deeper parts of the sun, if it launches plasma our way, that's what we call a coronal mass ejection. But really, it's a plasma blob, it's a plasmoid. You get a whole bunch of terms to describe this stuff. In general, it's just a massive amount of energy and mass from the sun. These are all very highly vibrational particles like hydrogen, helium, even heavier particles and elements like iron. Up to iron can be released by this, and they carry a lot of weight and a lot of energy with them if they get accelerated to what's known as relativistic speeds near the speed of light. And so you have that flux coming in, interacts with our atmosphere. They act as like catalysts and trigger these really powerful particle cascades. So we see that all our main sunspot activity is Earth-centered direct right now. We already have solar storms coming in, and this sunspot group, as you can see, 4100 is still very active. It did just discharge and it's finished. This guy is going in for round 3, 4, 5. It's not done yet. So Earth is definitely receiving a lot of energy from the sun right now. And we just had that most recent M-class flare. It was like a mid M-class flare. We have 4099 down below, has not been that active. New sunspot group 4104 right there. That has shown some activity over the past 48 hours or so, but really it's 4100 that is the star of the show. It's really quite wild. We can see the shock wave fairly nicely in our 304 angstrom view. Let's check that out. And this is the type of solar storm that we don't get that often. So this is like a maybe, I mean, you don't know exactly, but if we were to get 2 storms like this in 2025, that's probably accurate. You don't get these every day. This is equivalent to October of last year, 2024, and it's very similar to what happened in May of 2024. So that is kind of the dynamic. There's 2 big events like that last year. There's a whole bunch of more moderate ones and lower down, but 2 big events last year. This is the first one of 2025, and it's just following up on that G3 minus geomagnetic storm. So that's one of the modifiers. Let's check out our geomagnetic indices, in fact, so we can look at that specifically to understand why I think this storm is going to be a G5 storm. I think it's going to be a G5 storm. If not, it may not be a super long duration G5, but I think we'll hit a KP index of 9 with this storm. So let's go down to our 10-day plot, and we see that we just exited out of, and let's actually go down here. See that we just exited out of a G3 minus storm. So this is a measure of geomagnetic volatility across the planet. This is swings at Earth's magnetic field strength. Those changes are generated by electric currents in the ionosphere primarily, because an electric current generates a magnetic field. And so if you have these currents pulsing, it generates these magnetic field swings as measured at the surface, and also, of course, going out, and that's what satellites are, and that's why it can cause all these technological disturbances. But first, we had a minor impact from one coronal hole high-speed stream, then a much more significant impact right there. Took a lot of people by surprise on the channel. Anyone that was watching shouldn't have been surprised by that, because we had forecasted this out more than a week in advance, knew that something big was coming, and well, now we have more. But the point of saying this is that when you have that initial solar storm impact, that causes a big ion precipitation event from the radiation belts, which we can actually look at right here. We'll talk about the radiation belts in just a second, but it causes a big precipitation event from the radiation belts, and then what happens is all that solar energy and plasma streams in and recharges them and actually supercharges them. And so if you were to have this dynamic, which we have right now, of a strong storm immediately followed by another one, there's just enough time in between for that recharging effect to take place, then that second one that's coming up behind it is going to be even stronger, because all the energetic parameters are already disturbed, enhanced, and made more volatile. So things, I mean, we're just starting to cool off in terms of geomagnetic volatility, but the ionosphere is going to be more charged because of this G3 minus storm. The radiation belts are, really charging up right now at this moment in time. And so all that is going to probably amplify the impact of this solar storm coming in. So here we have our radiation belts. And this is, I think it goes for like 7 days or 10 days. But we notice the time up there, May 30th. But watch how they recharge at the very end. So we're just starting to get recharged here on these. And let me actually just go all the way to end and pause it. And so here we see it starting to recharge in the color. And yeah, it's a little difficult to work with this video sometimes. But let me try this one more time to get it paused. That's basically where it is. So we have our flux down here. And low flux is blue, high flux is red. And so we see that reaching, that flux is going up and up and up after that G3 minus geomagnetic storm, which came in on the 29th exactly, first thing in the morning. So if you watch our time up there, we have about 12 hours now. Watch right here, we get that crunch down, and then watch how it recharges after that G3 minus storm, starting to go up to these high flux values. Okay, there it is. So that's what I'm talking about. That's another modifier on this solar storm impact that we have coming in, and why I think it's going to be stronger than expected. If we go to, we have more to go through. We have a lot to go through. We can actually look at our most recent X-ray flux by going to the NOAA portal again. So let's do that. And here we have our 3 days. Here's the sequence that occurred, especially yesterday. We had this M-class flare, another M-class flare, then the 8.2. Look at the duration of that. It's still coming down from that, right? We're still in the midst, basically, of this solar flare. We had a whole bunch of other really rapid upticks, as we saw at the beginning of the video, during that long explosion and the decline of that, the decay of that. Look at this most recent one that just popped off, which we've also already looked at with the SUVI, but that was basically a 3.0 M-class flare. Sorry. You see it goes up to 2.99 and then also 3.04. So that's a 3.0 M-class flare on top of already heightened X-ray flux. And the important thing to keep in mind, some people just read this number and they use that as their gauge of the strength of a solar storm. This is a measure of X-ray flux. It's not one-to-one correlation with the strength of a solar storm. but it's showing how much energy is being emitted. And so if you get a spike like this, yeah, it can hit a certain value, it goes right back down. The overall energy output's not that high. But if it stays elevated, again, this is log scale, this stays elevated for a long time, the energy output from the sun out into interplanetary space is really, really high. So though it did not hit a, let's say, an X2 or X3, in many ways, this solar flare there is equivalent to an explosion like that because of how long duration it is and all these other solar flares that have been added on top of it. And we'll see if this maybe ramps up again. I wouldn't be surprised if we get more flares like this. So right now we have guaranteed 2 solar storms coming in, potentially a third from this M-class flare right there, that 3.0 M-class flare. And over the next 48 hours, we're still in the strike zone. We could very well have more. Here we have our latest intensitygram of the sun. You see 4100 there, exactly Earth center and direct. So it's not like it's now out of that zone. It's right there, folks. 4099 hasn't been too active, but it's still in the strike zone too, though a little further out or getting close to the edge. And then 4014 right there, going to make its way in, but it's not that big. It's 4100 there, that's the big one. And it was static and quiet on the Earth-facing side of the sun for 2 rotations already. And then it decided to wake up right when we had this critical planetary geometry with the Mercury Cazimi and more. We've had some super thanks come in from just another Patty. Thank you so much, bro. You're always a top supporter, so thank you for all your support. And yes, 300,000 subscribers, amazing milestone. Couldn't have done without all of you. So welcome to all the new viewers who are wondering what the heck is happening. What is this event? Well, it's just a massive solar energy push, big geophysical energy swings in general, just kind of a bubbling up of chaos. And keep in mind, chaos is just an order beyond our understanding. So it's not like these things are bad. There's no good or bad. If you take a non-dual perspective, you can see how sometimes certain events, which you could label bad, lead to good outcomes in the long run. So nothing's really good or bad with a non-dual perspective. It's just what it is. But it's good to be aware of the fact that we're in a big energy push right now because of how it can affect our health and wellness, because of how it can affect technology and society. And so being aware of things is good. That's the whole thing with consciousness. It's all about awareness, right? Be aware of who you are. So that is why we are discussing this on the channel. It's nothing to be afraid of. If we have if we get a solar flare that's going to melt us all down to the bones, I'll let you know, okay? I'm not calling for that event. But if the sun decides to do that, I mean, I'm not going to say the sun can't do that. Who knows what the sun can do? We really don't know. Our timeline of viewing the sun is very, very limited. But if we see something and that looks like what's going to happen, I'll let you know. But this is not that, but it is still a very significant energetic event for the Earth that's unfolding right now at this moment in time. Now here we see the culprit of that G3 minus geomagnetic storm, this really big trans-equatorial coronal hole. Check out the shock wave from that 8.2 M-class long duration flare. I mean, that is absolutely insane. It's coming up again. Watch right here. Just the whole thing just pulses with activity, right? Boom shakalaka. There we go. That is insane. So that shock wave is going to hit us first. That's the thing. We're going to get this really quick high velocity shock, and then the main body of plasma is going to come in and everything's going to go crazy really quick. I will keep you up to date on the channel. If you want to stay appraised as to what's happening, then please subscribe. Here we have our Hux-T space weather model that shows this, and this is just a different perspective, you could say, for us to look at. So let me step over, well, let me just move this over for us. And this is looking pretty wild. Check this out. There we go. That is direct hit as shown by Hux-T, and that is showing a very, very high velocity. Really, really significant push of energy from the sun coming our way. And they actually log the characteristics for their model, how they base it. So we see, if we zoom in here, we see that they are estimating the velocity of CME number 8, which is the one that we're interested in, as 1,572 kilometers per second. So I don't think it's that fast. I think that's a little fast for the model, but but it's a very high velocity coronal mass ejection. We'll do sound healing. We're about to do a sound healing for everybody, help equalize the energies. We see again our proton flux. We are in that elevated S1 proton radiation storm. And I also just want to talk about some general things that we're seeing right now in terms of the Earth and the energy. But to quickly look at a real-time solar wind, the impact has not come in yet. So this is the page you want to watch. If you're tracking this stuff, you want to go to the real-time solar wind on the NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center. Of course, there's some other portals as well. But when we see this all of a sudden really charge up, and we see the velocity go really high, and very likely the density up as well, that's when we know we had this impact. This will give us about a 30-minute to 60-minute heads up. Depends on the velocity of the solar storm. But usually it's about a 1 hour heads up, but since this thing's traveling so fast, it's going to be about a 30 to 40-minute heads up before this hits us, because this probe that's out in space is 1% of the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So it's an advanced probe for us, and so we can see what's happening here, and then we get that impact. So there's a little bit of a delay between the geomagnetic indices and what's happening there. We have a question from Brian of Oregon asking a question about Oregon, which is if this hits the Earth, which it will, when will the aurora be, and will it be over Oregon? So yeah, I think it's likely to go down to Oregon based off of all the parameters we've discussed. And the timing of that, that's a really difficult thing. But the UK Met Office model, which is one of my favorites, I think they'd make the best space weather models. They're showing that come in at 8 a.m. Universal Time. We'll pause it right there. That's 9 a.m. Universal Time, and that's just now slightly within the body of that plasma wave. So I would say 6 to 12 a.m. Universal Time on the 1st of June. So we're going to be bringing June in hot. Things are getting spicy, and then we have summer solstice coming up right around June 21st, which is when we have the next critical planetary geometry. And let me show you that. Perfect, I already have it loaded up. Here is the critical planetary geometry we have coming up June 21st. This is like much more geometric than the last one for May 29th to 30th. That was critical geometry. If you learn to read this stuff, it popped right out, at least for me. But this is even more significant, because here we have a heliocentric chart with sidereal signs. So basically true sky position for the constellations, though the sizes of the constellations do differ, right? You know, Virgo and Pisces, for example, are really large constellations. Others are smaller, like Leo and Aries. Regardless, this is true sky position, though the actual solar system, Jupiter's at 5 AU, you know, Neptune's at 30 astronomical units, so that's different, okay? Keep that in mind. But these angles are accurate. So here we have the Earth and the Moon in opposition to Jupiter. This is nearly Jupiter-Cazimi. That's just about, that's like on June 25th. But within 2 degrees of that opposition, we also have Mercury and Mars in opposition to the historic conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, with Ceres, the dwarf planet in the asteroid belt, just nearby. We also have this trine between Pluto, Uranus, and Sedna, which is near perihelion. It's a dwarf planet with a 12,000-year cycle, near perihelion there, participating in that trine also with Mars and Mercury. Mercury is the activator of all this, according to some of the researchers who pioneered this method. And then we also have a kite configuration. We see a kite configuration here. So we have Pluto kited to this group, kited to Uranus, and then that's also down to Mars and Mercury, 2 inner planets. So very significant. We get this cross action, we get the trine action there, and we get this kite configuration here. And you also have a bunch of semi-sextiles, which are 30-degree angles, which are also significant according, that's what was identified by these researchers. And in general, what they said is the more of these things that you add together, the more wild it gets. And so here's some text that I wrote out so you can better understand this. You can pause the video here and read this if you want, take a screenshot, whatever. But there's more to it than just what I wrote there, but that is also a good explanation as to why June 21st is significant. Then you add on the fact that it's going to be solstice, summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, winter solstice down south, down under. And that's another one of these really powerful energetic transition moments. You add that on. So yeah, June, that's looking like a wild time frame. Nothing could happen. Nothing could happen. But I would put my chips on this happening versus not, personally. Let's check our earthquakes, see if anything has happened, and then we're going to get into a sound healing. Because I'm traveling right now, but I do have a bowl, and I also have a tuning fork, and we'll play with that a little bit. So let's see what's happened recently. We've had more earthquakes in the Kermadec Trent. Actually, it looks like this magnitude 6.1 has triggered a bit of an earthquake burst there north of New Zealand, 4.6, 4.8, and then we go to Indonesia for the next one recently with a 4.5, but that magnitude 6.1 not too long ago right there. And of course we see back on the 25th a magnitude 6. So this area is very active. Remember January 15th, 2022, we had the Hunga Up High eruption, which changed our global climate. They expect that those changes to be active all the way to like 2030 or so. A huge volcanic eruption, massive explosion. So this area is very, very active. There are some interesting predictions out from the Japanese and also from a psychic in Thailand that there's potentially going to be some big event in between Japan and the Philippines and also like this whole area right there. So take that for what you will. They say that's going to be July, I think, what, July 5th? Yeah, July 5th or July 25th. We'll see if that happens. But they're like, people in Asia, I guess, are canceling their flights to Japan as a result because of this like incoming like mega earthquake and tsunami. So a lot of people believe this is going to happen because this psychic from Japan has predicted prior things before too, and same with the lady from Thailand. So interesting things as a result, as it relates to that. But it looks like this earthquake burst that we've had is the most significant in a while. We can actually go to Volcano Discovery to check that out. This is a website I really like. Let's go here really quick, and then we'll do our cosmic connection sound meditation to just help balance these energies out. Again, it's nothing to freak out about. It's just we're entering into a new era of energetic volatility on the planet. I call this Earth electrification. And this is also a new era of consciousness for the planet. Now with the explosion of the internet, technology, AI, we're more connected than before, exposed to so many new ideas. I mean, for example, all of you here on the live stream learning about space weather and the sun, this is something that wasn't taught like this 150 years ago. They didn't know about this 150 years ago. They counted sunspots. I mean, they just saw the first solar flare with the Carrington event. It took the Carrington event for them to actually get an observation of a solar flare back in 1859. So pretty wild stuff. But here we have our global seismic activity level, and we'll scroll down to 2025. If I can, here we go. We'll open this up. And yeah, perfect. So it looks like they haven't fully updated today yet because we're still there in like the moderate category, but we should be higher up because of all the earthquakes that we've had. But in general, you can see how since we've had these significant, really large coronal holes on the sun, something I've been tracking for a long time now on this channel, we've had elevated earthquake activity. And with these sort of pushes of solar energy, we could see more elevated earthquake activity in the days ahead. That's very, very possible. And I also want to make a quick moment to discuss weather. So we'll go to our weather map for the United States, just as a background overlay for us, if it loads. And we'll talk about what we can expect with weather. Maybe that's not going to load, but I have a different app we can use here. I think it's called Zoom Earth. We'll check out Zoom Earth, see if we got something cool. Yeah, so in general, there's more and more research coming out connecting what's happening in terms of tropospheric weather, which would be like a thunderstorm or, for example, a hurricane or tornadoes, to solar activity. And the strongest connection is with coronal hole high-speed stream impacts, which is what gave us the G3 minus geomagnetic storm. And we've been having those happen over and over and over. And we've been seeing this increase in earthquake activity as a result after those impacts. So if you remember back, if you're in the United States and you haven't been living under a rock, we started having significant tornado activity as well as supercells and hail and crazy winds and storms across the United States starting around mid-March, going all the way through March, April, and through May. And we've had some of the most destructive tornadoes in a long time in the United States this May. And most of weather forecasters are completely oblivious as to the effects of space weather. I've talked about this before. And so I have had some weather forecasters, meteorologists reach out to me and say, hey, you know, I take this into account. So God bless them. That's awesome. Not everyone is clueless to the effects, but in general, the official agencies are not incorporating space weather into their tropospheric weather calculations. Like NOAA has their space weather portal or team, you could say, and their regular like severe weather team. They don't really talk to each other as far as I know, because we're not seeing them use the space weather as guidance, at least, you know, an input into the equation for what sort of tropospheric weather and severe weather we can expect. So that's on you, because they're not doing it. If you live in anywhere that has a risk of this, I think there's a tornado risk, severe weather risk right now brewing for Europe, for example. So if you're watching this anywhere in the world, you have a risk of severe weather, it really behooves you to pay attention to space weather, because the official agencies are not doing that yet. I think that's one of the new things that's going to change with this new era. We're going to start taking a more holistic approach with things, like myself and other people are doing. But, you know, these organizations and governments, they're always 20, 30 years behind. If you read the research on a lot of things, there's some really good research coming out, but then like with health and wellness, for example, like the medical industry, the recommendations that they give you are always like 30 years behind the ball. So it's really always your responsibility to do that. And so that's just something that I recommend. I think that's really, really important. So potential for enhanced severe weather following these solar storms, and also right now already because of this radiation storm that we are in. I think I can actually hit play and watch this loop a little bit. Yeah, here we go. And it's funny, interesting timing. We had some rain coming in, and right as that solar flare hit, the 8.2 M-class flare, that is when we had the rain cloud burst and the thunderstorm start up and lightning flashes like crazy. We originally did not have thunder, or rather lightning, on the forecast. And when you have this big increase in the ionosphere, it was right as the sun was going down, so we still got hit. When you have this big increase in the electric potential of the ionosphere due to all that X-ray radiation coming in and charging up and creating more plasma, you know, you're strengthening the electric conductivity going through the atmosphere, and then any sort of severe weather or just weather system in general in the troposphere is going to be enhanced as a result of that stronger electric current, that gradient, that field. So it was perfect timing though. Last night we were waiting for it to rain, and then right as that flare hit, lightning started blasting off. It was not spooky, but it was pretty cool. So things like that, if you pay attention to stuff, you'll start to notice the connection between all these things. And don't let someone tell you that you're, you know, just because they haven't noticed it, seeing is believing. So if someone else hasn't noticed it, they'd be like, oh, there's no connection there, whatever. But most people are like 3/4 asleep every single day of their lives. So keep the, you know, I hope that's not us here in the channel, us 300,000 and more. But, you know, sometimes you need a rest. Sometimes it pays to be wide awake, and we are wide awake here. So let us do a cosmic connection meditation. I don't think there's really anything else to discuss with this live stream. We potentially have another solar storm coming in. That is looking likely, a third one, but we definitely know we have two, and they are going to pancake together and combine. So that is active at this moment in time. And therefore, this is very, you know, this can be very stressful to the body. So let's do a cosmic connection meditation the best I can with what I have to just help balance out some of these energies and for us to enter into this brave new world together. So we are not all going to die. You know, I've never called for the end of the world or anything on this channel. I don't know why some people think they read the headline and they don't watch the video. Anyone that actually watches the video knows who I am pretty well. I present who I am. I'm not, there's no acting here. So if something does crazy, like something crazy really does happen, like a super flare or a Carrington event, like, you know, I'll be very forthcoming with that. I'm going to go as fast as I can to present that information, and we'll see what happens. But in general, we've had super flare impacts before. Again, 774, 775 AD is a good example. And well, humans didn't die off with that super flare impact. So These things nowadays with the disruptions with the disruptions to technology, that would be significant, really significant. But it's not like, you know, we're all just going to keel over and burn together when the super flare comes in. You need like a supernova direct beam impact to like incinerate the Earth for something like that to occur. An asteroid impact is probably much more significant than a super flare impact in terms of the actual consequence. So I don't want you to be afraid or anything. I don't know why so many people are so afraid of stuff. I guess change is, you know, frightening for a lot of people. So find your passion, find your purpose. If you pursue that and you go full steam forward, you know, universe and God will protect you. That's what I believe. That's my faith. And if you do that, what's there to be afraid of? So I don't live with fear, and I don't recommend anyone live with fear. So on that note, let us do our Cosmic Connection meditation. I have a Tibetan singing bowl C note right here. And then I also have this tuning fork here. And I'll have to hold it next to my mic so you can hear that. And that's all I got. I also have my voice, Om. So maybe do some ohms. But let us begin. So find a comfortable position and just relax. Open up your lungs, deepen your breath. You can close your eyes. Maybe release the tension that you may be holding in your face. Just relax. Drop your shoulders. You put your hand on your belly. Just feel your breath through the diaphragm. And get ready for the solar storm impacts. Breathe deeply, softly. Feel not only your body, but your mind, your biofield. Connect to the energy of the earth herself. Feel these energetic changes unfold. Her evolution is our evolution. And our evolution is their evolution. Everyone not here, even though they may be unaware, we are all together evolving with the earth, with the sun, the solar system, riding the wave of quantum evolution of the entire universe. Hertz. It's happening. The solar storms are coming. The Earth is changing. We are evolving. Embrace the changes. Release the fear, the limits. Accept the truth. Be the love. That is the human consciousness evolution journey. Close out with one Om. You may join me if you would like. It's one master sound of the universe and of God. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you found this video useful information. Useful. If you'd like to stay tuned in, plugged in, then please subscribe to the channel. I've been your host, Stefan Burns, geophysicist, space weatherman, and more. Just another human being trying to understand what's happening on this planet. So if you'd like to join me in that journey, then please subscribe. We examine what's happening with the Earth geologically, geophysically. To do that, we also examine solar activity, space weather, planetary resonances, cosmic forces, and more. So we release videos almost daily here. There's a very vibrant community, very welcoming of everybody. So hope to see you around. If you are new here, welcome. And thank you for everyone that has made 300,000 subscribers possible. That is incredible. January 1st, 2023, I was hit 4,000. Now we're at 300,000. So onwards and upwards. Welcome to 2025. I'll be back with more as this solar storm impact commences. I recommend if you're in an area that could see aurora to make an effort to do that. That may be coming in tonight. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please visit wildfreeorganic.com to check out all the holistic wellness products that I offer, like earthing shoes, herbal teas, and more. I make all that to support all of you with these big energy shifts that we are going through. So that is something there for you all. And I'll see you all in a future video. Love and light, take care, and talk soon.